Hi everyone, you saw the thumbnail, you saw the title, so let's just get into it, because today's a special day. Today is the day I've been waiting for almost all year. That's right, we're going to talk about my subjective, personal favorite albums of the year. And here's how we're going to do things. First, we're going to start off with honorable mentions, albums I liked this year, but I don't like enough to put in my top 10 or just don't have enough things to say about. So there's going to be a good substantial amount of those. There's also going to be either in the description or a pinned comment the entire list of albums I listen to that are not mentioned in this video. So if you want to know every single album I listened to that was released this year, go check that list. It's going to be kind of a long one, I'm not gonna lie. I did listen to a lot of albums. And then, after the honorable mentions, we will get in top 10 territory. And prefacing this now, if you do not agree with my subjective ass list, don't get angry at me about it. Don't go write a fucking comment where you're complaining about, oh, this should have been there, or this should have been there, because I don't really care. This is for funsies. This is an end of the year celebratory look at all the cool shit that came out this year. That's how I personally view it. I understand if you want a more objective list, but if you want one of those, go watch Fantano. He made an incredible top albums of the year. There's a lot of them that are on this list. So like, I don't know, I feel like I'm both objective enough in my understanding of music, but also subjective in my enjoyment of it, if that makes sense. Anyways, let's just have fun. Starting off our honorable mentions, first off, we're going to start with the more commercial releases, as in like the bigger names, and then the lower on the honorable mentions, or technically the higher, I guess, depending on how you want to view it, we'll get to the more obscure stuff. But, anyways, starting off, 100 gecs, 10,000 gecs, the hyperpop legendary duo as of now. I really like this album. It's got a lot of the stuff you want from the duo. It's got a lot of obviously pop elements. It's got a lot of ska, not what I expected. It's even got some like new metalcore shit with a couple of the songs. It's a good album, but I do feel like it's shrunk on me since its release. I definitely don't like it as much as I did when it came out, but it was also one of the first releases of the year, so I feel like that played a big role into like, oh, first big thing to come out. Overall, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. I still really like it. I still play it every once in a while, but it is not in heavy rotation, if you know what I mean. Next, we have The Record by Boy Genius. This is, again, one of those, I really liked it when it came out, but it shrunk on me since then. I think the indie rock, classic rock, contemporary rock aspects of it are really good. Obviously, it's made by three of the best people in contemporary indie music, period. So, like, it was gonna be a good album no matter what, but I do feel like the appeal was definitely the, like, ooh, look at these big, super mega stars come together and make a band. And, like, I don't know, I feel like that's not as what's the word I'm looking for? It's not as enticing as it was when the album released. I still really like it. It's a 7 out of 10, but I mean, you know, it just, I don't know, it's not as interesting as it was before. This one may be a little controversial. Let's start here. Little Yachty. I really liked this album when it came out. I made a mini review. I talked a lot about it. I was like, this is a really good album. But yeah, no, with a similar theme with the other albums on this list, the honorable mention list, it's just shrunk on me. I just don't like it as much as I did when it came out. It's still really good. I really like the fact that Lil Yachty goes in such an experimentally different lane, and he does it really well, but it's just not as compelling as the other albums, and I feel like one of the biggest aspects of that is the fact that I don't feel like there's a theme in the album. Like, there are themes, but like there is not a overall narrative that feels cohesive once you get to the end of it, and I think that's what's keeping it out of the top 10 for me personally. It was a question I had about this album for a long time, so I wanted to like come back to it and explain. Anyways, 7.5, good album, but you know, it's whatever. It's like he's pinking my Floyd till I don't know, the wall or something. My real controversial pick for an honorable mention and not the top 10 is The Swans The Beggar. Now, yes, this is a masterfully made album. No one's arguing Michael Guerra's ability to make insanely good music. I think this is still an 8. That's what I'm giving it. However, big asterisk next to 8 out of 10, because this album did not need to be 2 hours long. Going back and trying to listen to it again, I just don't want to, because it's 2 hours long. And I do feel like that is the biggest hindrance to this album. If it was an hour shorter, it would probably be an easy 10, because it would just be all of the swells and builds all kind of, happening one after another and another. But because there's so much downtime in this album, it really becomes a slog to get through. When you hit the bigger tracks, you're like, yeah, I'm just here. And like, I get that it's supposed to be a meditative, reflective piece, like it's very obviously going for a more low-key thing. I just don't feel like I need a 2-hour shroom trip of an album, you know what I mean? That being said, this is still a very emotional album. It's an existential crisis made manifest into music, and I cannot get over how much I like that kind of stuff. So like, again, 8 out of 10. I still really like this album. It's just, God, this thing's fucking long. Now onto the more obscure picks, and by obscure I mean, artists that aren't like top charters every time they drop something or whatever. We have Cemetery with The Butcher House and The King of the Graveyard. Now, I know Cemetery got a lot of flack this year for just being Cemetery, especially on that Grade A tour, and I'm not really sure where that came from, because let's face it, he's more interesting than Suicide Boys ever was or ever will be. His blend of horror trap is way better than everyone else in that lane, and I don't really know why people don't like it. I couldn't tell you. You could make the argument that he's trying to be Cardi, but no, the fuck he's not, because Cardi doesn't even want to be Cardi half the time. That's why he hasn't released anything. Anyways, these EPs are really good. Butcher House even being an EP almost feels like a joke. It feels like he's messing with the audience by being like, guys, this isn't even a full release. What are you talking about? Don't worry about that. But again, I really like it. They're both super basic, but because they're so basic in what they're doing, being generic trap albums, that the production, can really shine. I like that it's mostly just good production, good features, and then Cemetery rapping about murdering people. That's what these albums should be. They should not be big, like, eclectic things. They should just be listening experiences. Do I wish he went back to the more insane sound of Rainbow Bridge? Yeah, I wouldn't mind, but I do like this more mainstream, yet still unique sound that he's going for as of late. And that's why these get 8s. I think these are 8s. Yeah. If there was one album that made me feel like shitting my pants on public transit this year, it was probably Saved by Reverend Christian Michelle Hader. Now, I already said a lot about this album in its review, but I'm gonna rehash a lot of that here, because I really feel like this was one of those albums that, like, I don't know, it really struck a chord with me. I really understood what it was going for, and I really liked that. However, the reason I listen to her music, her lingua ignota body of works, is because they're eclectic. There's so much happening in that music, and yet the emotion of it still comes across in its fullest, in my opinion. This album does something different, where it strips away a lot of that for the more subtle and emotional appeal, and I feel like it works, but I just don't like it as much. Like, and that kind of sucks, because the final track, what's it called again? How Can I Keep From Singing, is one of the best songs this year, in my opinion. It's such a haunting track, and when she starts with the tongues, and as the tongues build in the background, it's a really good swell, but I feel like it's undermined by the lack of other shit in this album. That may sound harsh. I'm giving it a 7.5. It's still a good album. I did like it, but it's not what I'm returning to, because there's not a lot to return to after a first, second, and third listen. So hopefully her other works in this new moniker go more expansive in the instrumentation. That's literally my only complaint like add some more shit, you'll get a 9 next time. Land of Sleeper by Pigs, 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 Pigs is one of the most straightforward albums to come out this year. It's a stoner doom slash, I don't know, it's just a heavy metal album. It's just one of those. It's really good in my opinion. I'm giving it an 8, but because it's so straightforward in what it's doing, as in being a stoner metal album, there's just not a lot to say about it. But also, like, man, if I told you getting high to this album wasn't one of the funnest fucking things I've done this year, then I'd be lying. So like, just go give it a listen. You'll like it, don't worry. Panchico's Failed at Maths was one of my most anticipated albums of the year, and it's still one of my favorites, though I do feel like its avant-garde nature restricts it from getting to the highest echelons of albums, mostly because it doesn't do it as often as I would have hoped. That being said, the instrumentation on this album is still impeccable. The synths are still fucking god tier. I really like the title track as it feels very experimental in its glitchiness, and I honestly just hope the band keeps doing what they're doing. Will they get a top 10 album if they keep doing what they're doing? Probably not, but like, they're still charting, they're still touring, I still really like their music, I'm seeing them next year, so like, you know, you give, you get. I don't know, it's not settling for mediocrity, it's more of settling for above average, and that's what I'm doing, so like, fuck it, who cares? This album's kind of special to me because I made a mini review, no one watched it, and then I unlisted it because I felt immense shame at my public display of no one watching my video. Gigi's Recovery by the Murder Capital is an album that I didn't know I was going to like because I didn't know who the fuck the Murder Capital was before listening to it, but this is a good showcase of post-punk being both alive and doing new and different things. It's a very emotional album. I really like the tenser moments, plus the singer, he's fucking crazy. The song Atoll, just honestly, it's a good song. You should just go listen to that song, and if you like it, listen to the whole album. I don't have a lot to say about it, but it's just some good post-punk with some contemporary, like, alternative rock elements to it. It's a fun listen. I'd give it, I think I gave it a 7.5, 8, somewhere in there. Orb Weaving by Midwife and her friend's name, who I cannot pronounce, and I'm not butchering that shit on camera. This is a fun little soft album. Slowcore, I guess is what this album would be called. It's got a lot of ambient noise to it as well, but I just really like it. It's a really soothing listen. This is one of those things you can kind of just put on in the background or you're reading like a book, you know? It's a nice album. I like it a lot. I'd give it an 8. It's not gonna blow your mind. It's not experimental or anything, but it is a nice, quaint listen, and if you like nice, quaint listens, then this album will be for you. I have a confession to make. I did not know what genre this next album was until I watched a video on it. So much breathing had to happen right there. Home is Where, The Wailer. I didn't realize that this was Midwest emo until about halfway through the year. It's a good album though. It's really funny. It's got a lot of punchy lines to it. The fact that there is a track named 9/11 and then 9/12 and how dynamic it is. The everyday feels like 9/11 and then the next track being about the day after 9/11 where everyone goes back to work. It was such a striking thing to hear the first time. It really hits the nerve that it wants to without necessarily having to like the waterboard you for it, you know what I mean? Overall, good album. I liked it. 8 out of 10. Yeah. Did I give Orb Weaving a number? It's an 8 too. Top 10 first album. What will it be? I don't know why I did that. Anyways, When No Bird Sang by Full of Hell and Nothing. As I said in the mini review for this album, Full of Hell is a band collective. I don't even know what the fuck they are. But I've been paying a lot of attention to them as of their Primitive Man and what was the other one? The Body as of their crossover albums with them. So again, when this collaborative album was announced, I was intrigued because it was a band I knew somewhat well and a band I knew nothing about. Nothing. And then upon listening to Nothing's, what is it, The Great Dismissal? Yeah. Upon listening to that, I was like, oh, okay, this is a real band. This is a band that makes real music that I like. And because of that, I was heavily anticipating this one. And when it came out, I was both taken aback and disappointed. But then I listened to it like 3 more times. And then I kind of got it, because the album is not trying to be a full of hell release. And once I kind of just internalized that, once I realized that this was indeed more of a Nothing album with full of hell collaboration, I started to get it, because it does what I really hoped this album would do, combining the walls of noise that Full of Hell is known for with the surreal and almost ambient instrumentation of Nothing, and it puts them together for a philosophical statement, if that makes sense. This entire album is about how the world is fucked. Everything's fucked, everything's dying, and there's nothing you can do about it. But also the surreal nature of it. It feels like this is taking a step back, looking at the horrors of the world and going, oh God, we live here. And I don't know, something about that I really like. I really like how it doesn't hit you in the face with that realization. It kind of, well, I mean, it does in Rose Tinted World, but then the rest of the album kind of lets you get there on your own. It's much more of a meditative piece for most of its runtime, and at first I didn't like that, but it's since grown on me in concept. This is an 8.5 in my opinion. I really liked it. It's the first of the top 10s. There you go. About 80 people know what album is coming next, and if you're one of those people, congratulations, you actually watched this channel. At number 9, we have Rhyme of Memory by Panopticon, which showcases Alex's most blistering side yet. This album features almost none of his more recognizable instrumentation, and by that I mean there's less acoustic guitar and banjo and more icy, chilling double kick drums and just soaring guitars. This thing is really a grandiose piece of music, and I like that it kind of just does that. Like, I like his other stuff. I think I'd give something like Collapse like a 9.5, but that doesn't mean that I like this album any less. I mean, I do a little, but like, it's number 9 in the top 10, so you know it's still a good album. And it's a good album because it's just black metal. It's not trying to fuck around, it is finding out. Even with the softer instrumental passages, they aren't necessarily softer in the sense that they're trying to provide levity, but more so in such that they're trying to present the tone and the setting of the album. This is a winter album. This is an album made for those who want to feel their bones rattling in their meat suit, and I really like that that's what this album is about. Not only that, but the album is actually about the environment, the climate change, the destruction of what we have built and live in. And I mean, that's just... If you're not listening to music that's politically charged, and by politically charged I do mean progressive, first off, fuck yourself, why aren't you? And second off, good for you if you are, and you're doing the right thing. This album is really great, I really like it. Fantano did shit on it a little bit, and that did make me a little sad. However, I still really like this album, so there you go, 8.5. This one's kind of a weird pick, because originally it was higher on the list because of personal enjoyment, but then looking back on it, in comparison to the other albums that get that high on the list, it just didn't make sense. It's Agriculture's self-titled debut album, Agriculture. I still really like this album, don't get me wrong. On a personal enjoyment level, it's like a 9 out of 10. But because it's this low, you can kind of tell that's not what it gets. It gets a 9. Still, actually, never mind. I lied. I don't know why I lied. It's a top 10 list. You should have assumed that they're all going to get something kind of high. Anyways, I really like this album. It's a good album. But what does it do differently? In comparison to most black metal, not a lot. It's got what you expect. Chugging riffs, really blasting drums, screeching vocals. The most different aspect of it is really the mood and messaging of it. This is an album about joy, jubilation, the ecstatic feeling of the ocean. Yeah, that's what this album's about. It's mostly about the ocean. And at first, you may be like, well, that's kind of fucking weird. But as someone who used to live by an ocean and still does, it's quite enjoyable. It makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of enjoyment you can get from just trying to understand kind of the thematics of it. And I feel like the album cover is one of the few of this year that really tells you what the album is trying to invoke. It's trying to invoke this sense of awe in the face of the unmoving and indomitable spirit of the ocean. It's a really weird passage I just went on, I know, but like, it's a black metal album. It's gonna sound kind of grandiose anyways, and I like that the subject matter is trying to match the theatrical nature of black metal's instrumentation and sound. It does it really well. Again, 9 out of 10. I really like it. It would be higher on the list had it not been for more experimental projects to come out this year. Here is the script for this video. At number 7, we have King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizards. Take 2. King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizards' Petrodraconic Apocalypse, or Dawn of Eternal Night, an annihilation of planet Earth and the beginning of merciless damnation. Now, if you thought this wasn't going to make this list, first off, you're fucking insane. I respect you. And second off, why would you have thought that? That's stupid. This album's really good, not only because of the speed thrash influence that obviously exists because, you know, that's what this sounds like, but also because of the messaging of this album. The way it talks about how, hey guys, maybe you shouldn't destroy the environment. Maybe you should stop using fossil fuels. Maybe you shouldn't fuck with things you know nothing about. You know, any of those things. Also, there's a cat that gets turned into a dragon. So, like, what's not to love about this? But on some real shit, I do think that King Gizzard's consistency should be examined not only in video essays. I have 3 saved on my watch later that are specifically about their ability to put out so much music, but like on like an academic level. Like, we should study this shit. The amount of consistent bangers they're dropping should not go unnoticed at such a level. Anyways, that's a rant for another day. I really like this because it's the kind of music I listen to, if you couldn't tell by the 2 black metal albums on this list already. Metal is just kind of where I feel the most comfortable musically speaking, and this album not only does that, but it then provides a lot of subversions of what you'd normally expect in a metal album. It's got a lot of Tool in it, as I said in my mini review, and because it's got kind of Tool influence in it, it's got enough that sets it apart from a lot of other releases from this year. The tribal drumming, the group vocals, a lot of it sets it apart in a way that feels both different but topically on point. Motor Spirit is still, it's like, it's fighting for top 5 songs of the year, I'm not gonna lie, and there are some fucking contenders for top 5 this year. But it's just a good album. Like, it's really satisfying to listen to. And the instrumentation, the guitar work on this album, oh my god, fucking insane. Like, I don't know what else to tell you other than the guitars are immaculate. It's like fucking butter on this thing. Yeah, 9 out of 10. Good album. Go listen to it. This is the album that took Agriculture's position. Liturgy's 93693 at number 6. Now, what can I say about this album that Fantano hasn't already said? Not a lot. This is one of the most experimental and innovative black metal albums to come out probably ever. The time signatures, insane. The absolute drilling that the drums are, insane. The guitar work, immaculate, angelic, divine, some could say. Not only that, but that doesn't even touch on the themes and messaging of this album. The heavy Christian narrative broken up into this insanely contemporary philosophical and theoretical understanding of the religion. I follow Liturgy on Instagram, and every time they post, I feel like I have to go read an essay. Like I feel like I need a book and not the Bible, like a book to explain what the fuck they're talking about, because this album is so filled with shit. And because of that, it's both hard to talk about, but also very, very interesting to listen to and to come back to. When I came back to it like last week, I was like, oh yeah, this is going in the top 10. How did I forget about this? And then I went and watched my video, another unlisted one, and sure enough, I said it was going in my top 10, so here we are. Sorry, Agriculture, you guys, you made a really good album, but this isn't even an album. This is like an experience. Transcendental black metal does in fact defeat ecstatic black metal. That was such a fucking word salad. I'm sorry for anyone who didn't just skip over that. Yeah, another 9.5. 9.5. At number 5, we have an album I didn't make anything on because it took me so long to listen to. Census Designated by Jane Remover. Oh boy, what can I say about this album other than it sounds like White Pony if it was made by someone who's from Gen Z. No, that's about it. That is a lot of what I would say about this album. I'm not going to lie to you. The obvious shoegaze of it is the biggest drawing factor, as Jane's previous works were much more digicore in nature, but this is instrumentally planted. Instrumentally planted, as in, like, you know, it's based in instrumentals. And God, is this a good fucking album. I love Holding a Leech. That song, when you get to the end, fuck me, that one of the best endings to a song, period. I don't know what else I can honestly say. The glitchy nature of it makes the fuzz of the guitar and the subdued nature of Jane's vocals immaculate. There's something about this album that feels truly new and innovative, and if this is just kind of the start to what Jane ends up doing, I don't even know. This next album could be a 10, honestly. This is a really good one, and the only reason it's not higher on the list is because personally, I don't enjoy it as some of the other stuff. And that's it. That's the only, like, if I like this album even a little bit more, it'd be a 10. 9.5. At number 4, we have one of the most experimental debuts probably ever to be a debut. Of course, I'm talking about Dog's Body by Model Actresses. This is one of the most hypnotic, erotic, and sensual listens of the year, while also simultaneously being grimy, dark, glitchy, hard to listen to at times, if I'm being honest. And I like that it does all of this in such a cohesive and coherent way that not only feels on theme to the sound, but also what the album might be about. I feel like most of this album is just about sex. I was going to say I think. No, most of it just is. But there's a deeper connotation to it. It's not just about the, you know, a body count higher than a mosquito. It's more than just about that. There's this like divinity angle that gets brought up a few times, but I don't really know how to place it because I haven't just read the lyrics like that. I've only really listened to the album because I just like listening to this album. It's really fucking good. I mean, the instrumentation is insane. The drumming, I don't even know. And like the vocals, peak. I could not ask for better vocals on an album going for such a vibe than this. This is like post-goth, post-punk. I don't know how else to describe it. Yeah, it's just a good album. It's really good. 9.5, obviously. I don't know what else to say. Yeah, you should listen to it if you haven't already. If you haven't already, you're fucking insane. You're just missing out on one of, like I said, the best debuts, point blank, period. Go do yourself a favor. Top 3 time, bitches, and we have a controversial pick. Liam McKay's 2 releases for this album. That's right, 2 of them. We have Hurting by Sign Crush's Motorist and Dead Calm's Accept. Almost got me, but not this time, Liam. These albums are incredible. I mean, they're slowcore made not only manifest, but by Gen Z. So, you know, you're getting some fuckery afoot. And that's that's why I like these albums so much, is because they're so simple in their messaging, in their themes, in their sound, and yet the consistency of them, the kind of overwhelming nature of the sensations that Liam is giving off is just, it's irrefutable. It is so all-consuming, and yet you feel like you're not consumed by it. I don't know how else to emotionally describe it, because honestly, these albums are pretty barren if you think about it. This is more barren than like some Dusters tracks, which is one of his, if not his favorite. I think he said it was his favorite band. So like, if we're talking about what he's going for and what he's reminiscent of, not only is he reminiscent of his favorite band, but then he somehow does what they did. I'd argue to a better extent. Every song of his reminds me of the Twins / Romantica off of Stratosphere, and that's one of, in my opinions, the best songs made. And he sounds like that every time. So if you had no other concept of what the fuck I'm talking about, that should be enough, honestly. But let's actually talk about it, because both these albums are both, well, Accept is kind of obvious in what it's about, but Hurting is really interesting because it's just about the hurt of lost love and the inability to accept that it's lost. And I feel like The Death of a Heart being the final track after what is basically 30 minutes of him just crying into the microphone with some guitar in the background is such a fulfilling finish, because you know that feeling that he's trying to get across, and finally he just tells you, he's like, fuck this, I'm done. And that's a really good closer. And then Accept is much more instrumental in nature, yet it consists of the same vibe, the same raw energy, and I really like that about it. There's that track in the middle, it's the girl's name, I'm forgetting it, but that one, when the actual instrumental hits, that full flourish, peak. 9.5 for both of these albums. God, I actually, fuck you. You know what? I'm giving Hurting a 10. Fuck you. I just want to let you know now that, or whatever that was, on a personal level, this is a 10. On a objective, this is music that people be reviewing, I had to give it like a 9. Desolation's Flower by Regana, one of the most pummeling, harrowing, woeful experiences of music I've had the delight of enjoying this year. I really got into their music the end of last year, so when I saw that this one was announced, I was highly anticipating it, and then it came out, and I was like, fuck yeah, it's exactly what I wanted. But let's talk about it, shall we? The dual instrumentation, that being the guitar and drums, and that's it, creates an interesting soundscape because it's so filled in. They have to be playing the whole time. They can't just not play or else there's no instrumentation. So you're forced into this box, and I really like how much they can do within this confining space, because the drums are always there, the guitar is always doing something, even if it's not in the forefront. But when it is in the forefront, that's when it feels like there's a flourish, even though it's the same two instruments that have been playing the whole time. And not only that, but the heavy, toned down aesthetic. Like, seriously, they're playing in drop B. Fuck, they might be playing lower than that. This shit's heavy. And because it's so heavy, the soaring, screeching vocals are just that much more impactful. Not only that, but the queer, trans thematics and messaging is made more abundant by the fact that, yeah, shit is fucked. Shit is, in fact, full of woe. Pain is quite constant in these fields. And because it comes at it at such a not pessimistic, but nihilistic approach. Pessimistic would imply that these tracks are expecting bad shit, but nihilistic more just means that they know that bad shit happens. I really like that the last track is a obviously much more optimistic look at things, because this entire album is so pummeling in its brutality, in its inevitable shittiness. Not shittiness in sound, obviously shittiness is in like shitty things happen to gay people if you didn't know, because that's how the entire album feels and sounds. The lighter finish is really satisfying, fulfilling, some would say. Also, if you haven't noticed, I'm not breathing through my nose a lot. I've had a cold for the past like week and a half since I released the 100 subscribers video, so I need to not die. So sorry if I sound nasally or if I'm breathing too much into the mic. I just kind of, I can't do anything about that. But anyways, 10, fuck you. I don't care anymore. If you're one of like 50 people who watched the review I made for this album when it came out, then you've been waiting for me to talk about it this whole time. And congratulations, we're here. Scaring the Hose, JPEG Mafia, and Danny Brown. One of the most sonically insane things I've heard. Let me tell you a story, actually. When I was making this list, I showed my girlfriend, and she was skeptical of the things I was putting on it, to say the least. She fucking hated the Ragon album, not because she hates their music, but because she can't stand their singing. And she saw no point in this being my #1 album of the year. I told her it wasn't going to change, and she said, but why? It sounds like every other rap album. And that struck a nerve with me, because no the fuck it doesn't. This is one of the most experimental and innovative ways of making a rap beat. The production is insane. The sampling is not only creative but works every time. Everything about this album is not only masterfully planned, but then it's masterfully executed, not only on a production level, but also vocally. Their fucking rhymes are crazy on this shit. The lyrics that they are just spitting rapid fire every track are fucking bangers. They either have you keeling over laughing, or they're like, damn, you just said that about someone. You can't do that. Like, what the fuck? And that's this entire album, front to back. And again, there's the complaint that they're too low in the mix. And to the people who still say that, I say go fuck yourself. Honestly, if you think they're too low in the mix, you don't care enough about the mixing. Because if you cared about the mixing, you'd realize that they're trying to show you the insane production on display. Even when the production takes a back seat, like on Fentanyl Tester, it then comes back twofold. I cannot express how good this album is and how obnoxious it is when people tell me that this album is not as good as I think it is, because obviously you don't care enough to listen to it. If you did, it wouldn't be that big of a fucking argument. It's not actually an argument. The conversation I was referencing lasted maybe 5 minutes. But no, this is a really good album. Obviously, #1. Yeah, I'd give it a 10. I would say that mixing knocks it down a point. The last song maybe as well, but like, no, I think it works. I think they could have switched the final 2 songs on the track list, but other than that, I have nothing bad to say about this album. It is a banger front to back, even when there are moments that I personally do not come back to as much. I don't care, because it's still a good album and I will still listen to those songs. Like, it's just a good album. Yeah, no, 10. I don't care. And with that, my list. I am done for reviewing music. Just kidding. I still have another video planned for the end of this year, which is the Bay Area punk scene video. Yeah, no, this was a fun list to make. I hope everyone likes it. I know I came off a little aggro, but that's mostly because I'm defending my points. Like, I'm making claims, and then I feel like I need to defend them and or explain why some things weren't as high as others. And, I mean, yeah, sure, I might have come off a little judgmental of some things, but, like, everything on here I liked. Like, even if I was talking kind of shit about it, it's because I was just pointing out things that I personally did not enjoy and why it subsequently ended up lower on the list. And that's it. That's literally it. This has been the video. Good job. You made it to the end. If you want to do the liking and the subscribing, that'd be really cool. Stick around for the last video of the year, and next month will probably be the chat pile video. I know, I've been talking about it for so long. It's happening. It will be happening. I promise. Thanks for watching.